3 years ago, I occasionally felt his presence, but I wasn't sure if it was just because you wanted him to hear that he was too old 40 years ago. But at 94, Clint Eastwood is still making movies and even dating a woman half his age. He still sticks to his crazy morning routine, starting at 5 a.m., with exercises that could kill most 30-year-olds. Clint Eastwood hasn't just survived at 94. He's living such a wild life that even his children can't believe it. He flies his own helicopter, hates birthday parties, and recently bought another multi-million-dollar property just because it looks nice. Oh my God. I don't want to break his neck because I'm heavy. Better that he's not that heavy. And truly, he could come to my office anytime. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment with the number 1, and if not, leave a comment with the number 0. Don't forget to hit like, share the video with your friends and everyone around so they can also explore this special story. Leave your comment below, and make sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any other exciting videos. Now, let's get started with the story. Clint Eastwood isn't considered a legend in reality. Everything about him, his childhood life, pointed to a different direction. He wasn't born into poverty as many think. He came into this world on May 31st, 1930, weighing over 11 pounds, so big that the nurses called him Samson. His family lived comfortably in a wealthy neighborhood in Piedmont, California, with 2 cars, a pool, and country club membership. His mother could trace their family lineage back to the Mayflower, but even with all those privileges, Clint didn't have an easy road, and much of the rugged working-class character he later built wasn't really true. It was part of the image he created to survive in Hollywood. As a child, school was a struggle. He flunked middle school and had to repeat a grade at Oakland Technical High School. His teachers saw something special in him, especially on stage. But Clint ignored their advice. He was too busy chasing cars and girls. His academic record showed he cared more about fixing engines than doing homework. Some of his friends even thought he never officially graduated. But there was something hinting at the artist inside him. He could play the piano like a professional. He practiced until his fingers hurt learning complex pieces that most teens wouldn't bother with. That focus would eventually help him write film scores for his own movies. After finishing high school, Clint didn't jump straight into acting. He took on some pretty dangerous jobs. At one point, he was taming wild logs in Oregon, a job where one wrong move could kill you. He then joined the Army, stationed at Fort Ord, and earned extra money as a lifeguard and a security guard. One night, he even broke up a knife fight. But the real turning point came. In 1951, he was on a Navy plane that crashed near Point Reyes. The accident wasn't the end. He had to swim over 2 miles through shark-infested waters, which he later called stark terror. That experience stayed with him for years, and when he starred in Escape from Alcatraz, he used that moment to make the cold water escape scene feel real. His acting career didn't really start suddenly. In 1955, he had a small role in Revenge of the Creature, a low-budget monster movie. He played a nervous lab technician named Jennings, and the key moment involved losing a mouse. The director hated the scene and didn't hesitate to express it. Clint only had 28 lines and had to do 15 takes to get it right. He was paid $75 a week, and Universal almost completely cut the scene. No one on set knew that the awkward guy fumbling with his lab coat would become one of the biggest stars in film history. No matter how good their intentions were, no matter what their illusions might have been, I vetoed and was ready for any tax hike that Congress might even think of sending up. And I have only one thing to say to the tax raisers. Keep making my day. In the mid-1950s, Universal Pictures ended his contract just after 18 months. They thought he wasn't good enough for the screen. The reasons were almost laughable. His Adam's apple was too big, he spoke too slowly, and he had a chipped tooth he refused to fix. At the same time, Burt Reynolds was also fired. Standing in the Universal parking lot, Reynolds joked, "You're really in trouble because I can learn to act. You can't lose that Adam's apple." Years later, Eastwood returned to the same studio, but this time as a superstar with $1 million salary. The place that once rejected him now had to welcome him back as a leading actor. Then came the moment that changed everything. One day, while talking to an editor at NBC, Clint was spotted by CBS executive Robert Sparks in the studio cafeteria. Sparks noticed how tall and striking he was. That brief glance led to a meeting, then a screen test, and eventually, a leading role in a Western TV show. The Rawhide series was a coincidence of being in the right place, looking the right way, at the right time. Suddenly, the man who had been rejected for his looks and relaxed attitude was now being praised for those very things. His face appeared on TV Guide, and producers called him an up-and-coming star. His slow speech and strong style that had once gotten him fired now attracted millions of viewers each week. But Eastwood didn't even like the character. He thought Rowdy was too immature, but he accepted it. What started as a supporting job turned him into a national name overnight. Within 3 weeks of airing, the show had broken into the top 20 TV ratings. But behind the scenes, it was exhausting. 6 days a week of continuous work in the scorching heat of Arizona. His pay rose from $750 an episode to an astonishing $119,000 an episode by the time the show ended. Still, some people thought he was lazy, with directors scheduling their days around his late arrivals. One even said they never put Clint in the first scene because they were sure he'd be late at least half an hour. By the 6th season of Rawhide, Eastwood was fed up. He was bored and desperate to try something new. That's when a strange opportunity came to him from an unknown Italian director shooting a low-budget Western in Spain. Director Sergio Leone used an American pseudonym, Bob Robertson, because no one in the U.S. took Italian Westerns seriously. Eastwood wasn't even Leone's first choice. He had tried to hire bigger names like Henry Fonda or James Coburn, but none of them fit the budget. Eventually, Clint agreed to do it. He thought it was a small film that no one in America would care about. If it failed, he took the chance and flew to Spain. Even though he couldn't speak Italian, and Leone couldn't speak English, they used hand gestures, a translator, and a lot of guesswork to make it work. The movie A Fistful of Dollars turned Clint Eastwood into an international star. But not just his acting stood out. Eastwood created the entire look for his character himself. The costumes weren't designed by a big costume department at the studio. He put it together from his own things. He bought a pair of black Levi's, bleached them, and made them rough, boots and a belt from Rawhide, and bought a hat from a second-hand store. Even the small cigars and poncho came from random stores he found along the way. The whole atmosphere of the nameless man was purposefully crafted. Eastwood wanted his character to speak very little and let body language speak for him. The silence made the character appear stronger and more mysterious, and although his name changed from film to film, The audience of Joe Mango Blondie saw him as the same silent gunslinger. The studio marketed them as a trilogy, and this image stuck when the films finally premiered in the US. Critics hated them, and they were vocal about it. Some called the first part cheap, others said the second part was silly, and a New York Times review criticized both the good and the bad, calling it an ugly disaster. It criticized Eastwood's acting, saying he looked like a piece of wood. But the audience had the final say. The trilogy grossed over $84 million worldwide on a budget of just under $2 million. The good, the bad, and the ugly alone made nearly $39 million and sold over 44 million tickets. These films, dubbed spaghetti westerns, took off and inspired a wave of similar films. The critics eventually caught up, but before that, Eastwood had already changed the game. Clint Eastwood didn't just become a Hollywood legend, he earned that fame on his own terms and never gave up. His journey to superstardom took a big step in 1971 when he played Detective Harry Callahan in Dirty Harry. But believe it or not, that role was never meant for him. Initially, it was offered to Frank Sinatra, who worked on it for several months before quitting. Paul Newman declined because he didn't like the politics of the role, but Newman didn't just decline, he handed the script directly to Eastwood and said it might be a good fit. Others also passed. John Wayne didn't want the remnants of Sinatra, Robert Mitchum thought it was garbage, and Steve McQueen turned it down because he had already played a cop in Bullitt. One by one, the biggest stars in Hollywood stepped back, and Eastwood stepped forward. He took the risk, bringing it into his own production company and hiring his own director. That film not only succeeded, but exploded. Then Eastwood did something no one expected. In 1978, he signed on to Every Which Way But Loose, a comedy about a truck driver fighting on the streets and his pet orangutan, Clyde. Everyone thought it would ruin his career. Here was the tough guy from Dirty Harry, and now he had to babysit a monkey. But Eastwood didn't care. He believed in it. The film was critically panned, but audiences loved it, grossing over $100 million and becoming his biggest hit. Even more shockingly, the sequel grossed another $70 million. They made nearly $1 billion by today's standards. But behind the laughter was a dark twist. Clyde, the orangutan, was reportedly beaten to death by his trainer after stealing donuts on set. A tragic end to one of Hollywood's strangest success stories. That kind of risk-taking wasn't new to Eastwood. In 1975, when he was filming The Eiger Sanction, a film with dangerous mountain climbing scenes, while shooting on the north face of the Eiger Mountains, a crew member was killed by falling rocks. Eastwood, who was both the star and director, almost shut down the film, but instead, he made a decision that stunned everyone. He would do all the dangerous stunts himself. He climbed the cliff, hung from the ledges, and filmed without safety equipment as we would expect today. At 44, he risked his life for the film, and that wasn't even the first time he faced death. Many years earlier, he survived a plane crash into shark-infested waters during his time in the military. He later said that if he knew about sharks, he probably would have died from fear alone. Eastwood's confidence in himself also helped him avoid pursuing the wrong roles. He was offered Superman in the late 70s. Yes, Superman, but he flatly turned it down. "That's not for me," he said. Like James Bond, if he accepted, he would have been the first American to play 007. But he knew better. He understood his brand. Eastwood wasn't the guy in tight pants or a tuxedo. He was the guy squinting and holding a gun. If you found this story intriguing and want to learn more, don't forget to hit like, share the video, and leave your thoughts in the comments below to let us know what you think. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any other interesting videos. Now, let's continue with the story. By the end of the decade, Clint Eastwood was not just a top man, he was a force behind the camera as well, with his own production company, Malpaso Company. He had full control over his films. He not only chose his roles, but also shaped them from the ground up. If the script didn't work, he would change it. If the studio hesitated, he would push even harder. Even when people laughed at him for starring in a comedy with a monkey, he made it work and earned a fortune. Clint Eastwood had acted for many years, but by 1971, he no longer played by anyone else's rules. He wanted to direct to have complete control over what happened both in front and behind the camera. So when Play Misty for Me became his directorial debut, he gave it his all, with no backup plan, no second guessing. Most first-time directors go over budget, work late, and are weakened by studio politics. Eastwood did the opposite. He filmed the entire movie in his hometown of Carmel by the Sea, using real locations like a local radio station and a restaurant. Instead of luxurious settings, he finished the film ahead of schedule and with a budget $50,000 lower. Even the music was done his way. He personally bought the rights to Robert Flax for $2,000, and it became a hit. The film grossed over $10 million and kicked off Eastwood's directing career in spectacular fashion. But it wasn't just luck, it was strategy. In 1967, Eastwood thought long-term. Tired of Hollywood's rigid system, he and his advisor founded Malpaso Productions. It wasn't just a company, it was a statement. Malpaso means bad step, a nod to the agent who warned Eastwood that making spaghetti westerns would ruin him. Instead, those very westerns helped him make enough money to buy hundreds of acres near Malpaso Creek and build a creative empire. By the time he made Hang 'em High, his first film under Malpaso, he not only starred in it, but also produced it. And when it broke opening weekend records in 1968, Clint Eastwood was no longer the TV guy from Rawhide. He was a real force. What really set Eastwood apart was how he worked on set. While other directors would spend days perfecting a shot, Eastwood became famous for getting it done in just 1 or 2 takes. No shouting, no chaos, just silence and focus. He believed the first take usually felt the most genuine. The most vibrant actors quickly learned that if you weren't ready, you might not get another chance. Jeff Daniels once said, "You have to be ready, because that's just 1 take." Matt Damon had to beg for a second take, but it worked. This method helped Eastwood guide actors like Hilary Swank and Gene Hackman to Oscar-winning performances. Clint Eastwood was a Hollywood legend by the early 90s, but what happened next would take him to a whole new league. It began with a Western script called The Cut Killings. Not exactly something studios were eager to pick up. Even Francis Ford Coppola had tried in the 80s but couldn't make it work. But Eastwood saw something in it, bought the rights, and then waited for years, wanting to develop the role literally. When he finally filmed it as Unforgiven at 62, the timing couldn't have been better. The film exploded, grossing $159 million on a small budget and winning big at the Oscars. It wasn't just any movie, it was a final mark of respect, and Eastwood made sure to honor his old mentors, Sergio Leone and Don Siegel, in the introduction. The gunslinger had officially become a filmmaker. Just over a decade later, he took another gamble. Million Dollar Baby was the kind of film that worried studios. It touched on the dark subject of assisted suicide, a big risk, but Eastwood went ahead. Warner Brothers initially barely gave it a proper release, perhaps expecting it to fail, but the film broke through and grossed over $216 million. It swept the Oscars, and suddenly Eastwood was not just a respected director, he was unstoppable. It proved that he could tackle heavy, uncomfortable topics and still move audiences. That was when people stopped questioning his instincts. The year before, he had shaken the industry with Mystic River. The film was like a slow burn with a punch to the gut. Childhood trauma, shattered lives, a mysterious murder that felt too real. Eastwood kept everything silent and focused, with no flashy filming techniques, just raw emotion and a cast that gave it their all. Sean Penn and Tim Robbins won Oscars, and critics could finally say what they had been thinking. Eastwood had become one of the most emotionally precise directors. Then came Gran Torino. No one expected an Eastwood near 80 would deliver one of the biggest hits of his career, but he did. The story of a racist, grumpy war veteran who softened just enough to protect his neighbors whom he once hated somehow hit the perfect emotional nerve. This character was tough, bitter, and oddly familiar, almost like an aged version of every role Eastwood had played before, and the audience loved it. The film grossed $270 million and still holds a special place among the highlights of his later career. Even critics pointed out that his very presence brought the film, like a ghost of Dirty Harry, just beneath the surface. Behind all this success was a method unlike any other. Eastwood didn't shout action on set. He didn't rehearse constantly. He didn't believe in second chances. One take could be two, and that was it, he'd say calmly. He trusted his actors, and most of the time it worked. Tom Hanks once joked that Eastwood treated his actors like horses, because in the old westerns, yelling on set could scare them. The quiet control, though, became his trademark. The pressure to stay calm was high, but the results spoke for themselves. Clint Eastwood's life was always in the spotlight, but there were parts he kept deeply secret, parts he didn't even know existed in most of his life. Laurie Murray didn't know who her biological father was. She was adopted and raised in Seattle. She grew up far from the Hollywood world, never suspecting her biological father was one of the most famous men in America. Clint Eastwood also didn't know the woman he briefly dated in the 50s never told him she was pregnant. Decades later, Laurie set out to find her roots and uncovered a truth no one saw coming. When she reached out to him, Clint, now in his 60s, welcomed her with quiet warmth. It wasn't a scandal, but a connection. They bonded over playing golf together, spent vacations, and gradually, she became part of the Eastwood family. But the world didn't know until 2018, when she proudly introduced herself as Laurie Eastwood at the premiere of The Mule. It was like a 64-year-old secret coming to light. But secrets weren't unusual in Clint's world. In 1959, when he married Maggie Johnson, he began a passionate affair with stuntwoman Roxanne Tunis. It wasn't just a fling, it lasted 14 years. Everyone on set knew about their relationship, and they didn't hide it. It brought them a daughter, Kimber, but Eastwood also kept that secret from the public eye. Roxanne wasn't just a mistress, she was deeply caring, even staying with him after their romance faded. They remained close until her death in 2023. Eastwood was deeply affected. She had been part of his life for over 6 decades. Then came Sandra Lakash. Their story began like a Hollywood romance but ended like a soap opera in court. They lived together for 14 years, during which Clint was technically still married. When she came home in 1989 and found the locks had been changed, everything fell apart. She sued him. Instead, she discovered he had secretly paid for a deal to make her yield. She sued again, this time for fraud. The court witnessed a different Clint, angry, defensive, and clearly bitter. The case ended with a quiet settlement, but the damage was deep and long-lasting, causing the once powerful couple to never speak again. As everything unfolded, Clint began another hidden chapter in the early 80s. While still with Locke, he met flight attendant Jocelyn Reeves, who became the mother of 2 more of his children, Scott and Catherine. Their birth certificates read, "Father refused." It wasn't until a tabloid dug up the truth in 1990 that the public learned that Sandra Locke was also unaware. Jocelyn remained silent, never took him to court, never stirred up trouble. But as the children grew up, family tensions began to spread. The online criticism and legal threats from Catherine in 2024 showed how fragile things still were, even many decades later. In his later years, Clint found something more solid. Her name was Christina Sandera. She wasn't a star or a model. She worked as a stewardess at a hotel in Carmel when they met in 2014. She stayed away from the spotlight, never seeking attention. They lived quietly, supporting each other, and only appeared together on rare occasions. She focused on animal welfare and the environment, while running a horseback riding center. To those close to them, she was the truly down-to-earth private one, fully accepted by the Eastwood family. Her sudden death in 2024 from heart disease deeply affected Clint. Quietly, painfully. His statement was brief, but those close to him saw the impact. Now, at 94, the man once known for his roles as cold, solitary characters had softened in a way no one expected. As a father, he was strict, distant, unforgiving. But as a grandfather, he was a completely different person. His daughter, Francesca, described him as warm, cheerful, and always attached to his grandchildren. He showed up for their games, laughed more, and called himself a fool when standing among younger parents, but he didn't care. He had earned the right to affection when witnessing his family becoming a beautiful mess, blending imperfections that seemed to bring him a sense of peace he had never known throughout most of his life. At 94, most people slow down, reflect on the past, perhaps bask in the sun or nap. Not Clint Eastwood. He had just completed directing another film, Juror Number 2. And it wasn't a quiet, nostalgic farewell, but a sharp, haunting thriller, posing a terrifying question. What if you were the one who unknowingly committed the very crime you are now on the jury to judge? That was the nightmare Nicholas Holt's character faces in the film, and Clint somehow still knew exactly how to make that tension feel real. He filmed the movie quickly, cleanly, and without any unnecessary fluff, just as he always had, even at 94. His direction was tight, his instincts incredibly accurate, and his style remained minimalist as ever. No shaky hands, no emotional slowdowns, just pure Clint. Everyone thought this would be his final project. Of course they thought that, But before the film even had a chance to catch attention, rumors started circulating that he had already locked in the cast for his next film. While the industry thought he'd fade into the sunset with this final film, Clint was quietly planning another movie. He didn't talk about retirement, he didn't talk about age, he just kept working. And that was it. At the end of 2024, an unexpected controversy rocked the entertainment world. An interview on YouTube featuring Clint Eastwood talking about his film Juror Number 2 suddenly disappeared from the platform. No warning, no copyright claims, and no official reason given. The host, named Magnus, stated that the video simply vanished, which sparked a wave of online speculation, with many believing that Warner Brothers was behind the removal, especially since Eastwood had made bold comments about political accuracy and the #MeToo movement. In the interview, fans quickly pointed out the strange timing. The interview disappeared just as the film was being released in a select number of theaters. Some speculated that the studio might be trying to avoid attention on the film, fearing that Eastwood's candid views would spark backlash. The situation quickly turned into a larger debate about freedom of speech in Hollywood. Eastwood's supporters argued that someone with a legacy over 90 years old and still working should be able to express their thoughts without interference from a studio. Others believed there could be legal or contractual reasons, not publicly disclosed. At the core of it all is Clint Eastwood himself, a man who continues to work at the age of 94 and refuses to slow down. According to his daughter, Allison Eastwood, he dislikes having his birthday celebrated. He even doesn't want anyone to mention it. She once said that he just wants to work and enjoy life, and attempting to throw him a party never works. He always shuts it down every time. That attitude says a lot about the man he is. Eastwood has always focused on his work rather than the attention that comes with it. He's never been one to chase awards or bask in the limelight. Even now, when most people his age have long retired, he still keeps moving forward. Allison, who's acted alongside him in a few films, said the greatest lesson he taught her was not to take life too seriously. That mindset explains everything, from his quiet refusal to celebrate birthdays to how he continues to tackle film projects with the energy of someone half his age. If you found this video interesting and want to discover more captivating stories, don't forget to hit like and share the video with your friends and everyone around. Leave your comment below to let us know what you think, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any other exciting videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.